Dense, crimson dusk settled over the basalt terraces outside Vesper Reef as Lara Keast climbed the western resonator tower. The clouds above her head looked like embers raked across iron, their undersides glowing auburn where the planet's dwarf star skimmed the horizon. Everything here, sky, soil, even the salt spray from the Southern Ocean, carried that rusty hue which had given the world both its formal name, Pharion B, and its colloquial one, Crimson Dusk. Lyra had grown up inside that permanent twilight, and she carried the color on her skin and in the freckles across her cheeks. In every other respect, she was ordinary. Middling height, unremarkable grades at the College of Terraforming Dynamics, and a reputation for staring too long at the horizon when she should have been clocking airflow data. Yet tonight the governor had ordered full atmospheric modulation, and the towers needed 4 licensed terraformers on station. 3 had arrived, which meant that, degree or not, Lyra was about to slide into the 4th harness. The wind picked up as she reached the mesh platform. Below her lay a pilaster of obsidian, shot through with magnetite veins, quarried 8 years earlier, cored and fitted with a spiraling set of pressure jets. Each jet was essentially a variable throat organ pipe, the terraformer's primary tool in guiding local air density. When they sang together in calibrated sequence, they could thicken or thin the stratospheric shelf overhead like a bellows. Done carefully, the maneuver created controlled corridors through which incoming projectiles would sheathe themselves, break mock, and blossom into premature detonation far from civilian roofs. But a mistimed sequence produced shockwaves that flattened streets and lungs alike. In the earliest years, before the algorithms matured, whole townships on Crimson Dusk had collapsed into rubble from their own defense system. Those ghosts haunted everyone who ever leaned against a resonator's rail. Lara clipped her harness to a ring bolt and approached the console. The other 3 terraformers, Senior Engineer Agril Ben, Systems Pilot Horvi Lutt, and Atmospheric Mathematician Cass Nineware, already synced in the tower network. Their holographic avatars shimmered in her ocular implant, orange silhouettes on the periphery of vision. "4th chair joining," Lyra said, trying to keep her voice level. Ben's reply crackled through the comms. "We expected your father." "He's still in Field 27 running calibration on the basal injectors," Lyra answered. "He said you couldn't wait." A grunt. Ben never masked disapproval. "Fine. Slow it in. We're already 2 minutes behind Governor's schedule." Lyra slid her fingers across the console deck, bringing up the pressure grid. Data unfolded correlates of figures representing temperature, wind vectors, humidity, and, most important, the Mach critical height at each grid intersection. A darker stripe on the western quadrant showed where the atmospheric roof had been lowered, a predicted kill zone for a missile volley whose launch countdown ticked in the corner of her vision. The enemy came from the continental interior rogue refinery barons, who refused to pay export duties. Over the last year, they'd graduated from bullet drones to proper hypersonics. Terraformers had stopped them 6 times. Each time the rogue barons tuned their warheads a little more sharply, studied the failed trajectory, then rebuilt and tried again. Tonight's volley, if her readout spoke true, was fractionally faster than the last, skimming the transonic band before hitting full burn only within 50 clicks of impact. That meant the window for atmospheric detonation would be narrower than ever. "We'll run phase thinning at 5.2 kilohertz, Ben ordered. Sequence. A to E. Then hold. Lutt counters the shock node. 9 tracks thermals. Lyra swallowed. "What's my job?" "Monitor harmonic bleed on the lower decks. If harmonic integrity drifts past 6%, cut power and vent." "Clear." "Yes, Senior. Begin." The resonator tower hummed under her feet, and the deck plates vibrated a touch, behind the audible range like the memory of thunder. On the horizon, Lyra saw the other towers lighting up, blue-white arcs climbing from their spires as corona discharge bled off static. The planet's dim sun had dipped lower, leaving the sky a deep claret. Soon the only glow would come from the towers themselves. She set the harmonic sensors to auto-measure every 5 seconds. Immediately, she saw bleed at 2.1%, well within tolerances, but climbing faster than simulations predicted. Layer upon layer of standing shock began to stack, 12,000 meters overhead, each one tuned so that the next would compress behind it. Any high-speed object entering the pattern would slam into a discrete wall of pressure and produce a sonic boom, releasing most of its kinetic energy early. The munition's own warheads would do the rest, scattering themselves in brilliant but harmless fireworks above the clouds. Lyra had watched those skybursts since childhood, sitting atop city balconies, counting how many starbursts meant success and how many traced failure all the way to the surface. 12 long years the towers had kept them safe. They were supposed to keep them safe tonight as well. A private line pinged her implant. The caller ID flashed. Father. Lyra. His voice was ragged, breathless. Listen carefully. Dad, I'm online, can't talk. You have to talk. They switched the payloads. Her hand froze over the console. What? They're using triple casing munitions with ablative tips. The outer shell sheds in the lower thermosphere, absorbing the first shock. The second layer is porous, designed to scatter our pressure profile. Only the core detonates. She pictured the missile cross-section he'd described, a saboted penetrator, the same principle as an armor-piercing round. But RIT planes? It means you have to overdrive sequence C. You must collapse the entire standing shockwave into a single wall, one big boom. Lyra's throat tightened. Overdrive would raise ground-level pressure by at least 30 millibars, enough to shatter windows, maybe worse. Ben will never authorize. Ben doesn't see the yield profile I'm seeing. Her father's voice dropped to a whisper. I hacked their war room. Trust me. Static swallowed half his sentence. Out on the plain, lightning danced between towers, silver in the scarlet gloom. Lyra saw the harmonic bleed creep to 3.7%. Ben broke into the main channel. Fourth chair, why is bleed rising? Compensate or tell me why you can't. Lyra toggled audio. Second wind shear forming from the south. I'm correcting. She fed a correction but kept amplitude modest, buying herself time. Her father's line crackled again, then died. Probably interference from the tower's electrodynamic envelopes. Lut, confirm inbound time to intercept, Ben ordered. Lut, ever precise, replied after a 2-second delay. First waves crossing high point in 62 seconds. The profile matches last month's, but with delta V plus 4%. Lyra's pulse hammered. 4% plus triple casing, not survivable under standard sequencing. She could do the math in her head. If the outer shell stripped at 80 kilometers, the remaining body would hit the first partial pressure wall still supersonic, but its shape and mass would allow it to punch on. The second wall would dissipate across the porous mid-layer. The core warhead, maybe 10 megajoules of conventional RDX or, worse, a dirty fusion pellet, would erupt less than 5 clicks above the city. Even a kiloton airburst would liquefy Vesper Reef's skydocks. Overdrive Sequence C punched all 5 scheduled partial walls into one. A single concussive band would meet the missiles above the tropopause. The blast would be brutal but high. Properly phased, it would spare the city while tearing the warheads apart. The cost? Everything fragile at ground level, from bus windows to garden houses, might suffer. 30 seconds. Lyra's breath came fast. She could bypass Ben's lockouts. Her father had taught her the maintenance codes, heritage override strings embedded in the tower firmware. Each tower drew on a shared frequency pool. With one command, she could realign them. But to do it, she would have to unlock the safety relays. If she was wrong, 20 seconds. Across the deck, Ben cursed low. Bleed at 4.9. Lyra, what in hell are you doing? Her name, not fourth chair. First sign of alarm. Lut's voice overlaid his. Multiple inbound confirmed. 10 vectors, not 6. They're scattering trajectories. Cas9, usually silent, whispered, That's the decoy protocol. They mean to saturate the walls. 15 seconds. Lyra opened a private channel to all three. The munitions are triple-cased. Outer shells will dump their energy early and keep going. We need a single wall, Ben answered in clipped syllables. Speculation, continues standard procedure. It's not speculation. She considered citing her father's hack, then discarded the idea. Ben hated Cordenkest, called him a reckless dreamer. Data supports it. Look at their mass-to-drag ratio. 10 seconds. Silence from Ben. Whether he checked or not, she couldn't know. But the window closed with each breath. She typed the overrides, cold prompt. Heritage string? She entered the stanza from the oldest terraformer's oath. Here we gather air, blood of the world, that we may breathe tomorrow. Confirm Y/N. She pressed Y. Above her, towers changed color, from blue-white lightning to a molten gold that toned down to deep violet. The visual signature of overdrive. The visual signature of overdrive. The hum beneath her feet turned into a roar she felt in her molar. Pressure ramps surged. Kest, Ben shouted. Unauthorized control. Abort. All four towers boomed, in perfect unison, as if a giant drum had slammed shut over the planet. Lyra's knees buckled. She grabbed the rail. The sky ripped open in a line of dazzling white. Instants later came the sound, not a thunderclap, but the prolonged tearing of reality itself. Every pane of glass in Vesper Reef sang, then shattered. In the heavens, 10 contrails entered the wall. Lyra watched them in slow motes, each a silver needle. At the moment of contact, those needles turned into blossoming spheres of fire. White, then green, then tinged with violet, as the warhead's casing vaporized. The blossoms diffused. No branch fell earthward. A second later, the shock wave reached the tower. It rocked, but the dampers held. She had done it. Yet the celebration died before it formed. Alarms flashed red across the deck. Pressure valleys, backlash from the overdrive, cascaded downward, threatening a ground-level implosion. If she did nothing, the air would rush back in chaotic vortices, spawning tornadoes across the city. Lyra clawed at the console, bringing up ballast pumps, massive subterranean fans. Before she could activate them, Ben interposed his own command, locking her out. "Enough, Kest," he growled. "You'll kill us all. Stand by." She saw his cursor, highlighting a gentle attenuation slope. Too gentle. The backlash would disintegrate half the tower network before it recouped. She overrode again, this time encrypting her own commands. Ben's shout of outrage echoed in her headset. Lut and Nine stayed silent, waiting to see which authority won. Lyra switched the ballast pumps to full reverse, drawing air from the North Ocean, seeding it with ionized mist to stabilize entropy. On her sim pane, bright red turbulence shifted to amber, then yellow. Most towers survived the new load. A few distal pylons would shear, but not enough to threaten the city's backbone. Finally, Ben cut in on a private whisper. "I'll see you stripped of license for this." "If we're alive tomorrow," she answered, "I'll hand you the paperwork myself." And then it was done. The pressure graphs settled, backscatter dropped. The resonance in her bones faded, leaving only the light rain of shattered glass falling across rooftops. Governor Taille's voice filled the wideband link, crisp and deliberate. "I need a status report, Senior Ben." Ben hesitated just long enough for Lyra to taste the choice he faced, condemn her or share the credit. At last he spoke. "Missile threat neutralized. Some infrastructure damage. Casualty reports pending. Terraformer Kest initiated an emergency protocol that, on balance, saved the city." Taille accepted it without further query. He had the politician's gift of knowing when to probe and when to bank gratitude. "Well done, all of you. Coordinate repair crews. Restore resonance capability within 24 hours. Council session at dawn to review countermeasures." The link went dead. For the first time since the sequence began, Lyra unclipped her harness. Her hands trembled. She braced them on her thighs and bent double. breathing the hot metallic air of the tower's top deck. The freshly disturbed atmosphere tasted like pennies. A shadow loomed. She looked up to see Cas9 approaching. Cass's gray eyes held neither praise nor reproach, only curiosity. "How did you know about the triple casing?" Lyra wiped a smear of sweat from her chin. "My father hacked the Baron's tactical servers." "Risky," Cass considered, "but effective." Together they watched ambulances thread the streets far below, their strobe lights turning the crimson night purple. The clock in Lyra's implant read local 2014. Only 14 minutes had passed since tower ignition. She unclipped her comm earpiece. Sacrilege under protocol, but she needed a moment without voices. The silence lengthened. She thought of the broken windows, the scared children huddled under furniture, the supply of replacement glass that already ran tight on Crimson Dusk. Yet, all the people behind that glass were alive. Her wrist beeped. Incoming call. Father again. "Honey," he said at once. "I saw it. We watched the detonation from Field 27. You saved them." "I almost killed them." She forced a laugh that cracked on the edges. "You didn't mention the part where the city implodes if I mess up the damping curve." He coughed. "I assumed you took practical damping in second year." She made a rude noise. Then she asked, "How do you hack a secure war room?" Silence. "You ever wonder where your tuition money came from?" "Dad," he chuckled, the old conspiratorial sound that had always made childhood feel like a treasure hunt. "Let's just say I still have contacts." Their link fell quiet. Distant thunder rolled across the plain as residual standing waves bled outward. Lyra looked west, where the sun was now a fingernail flickering behind the plateau. Far beyond that, the refinery barons would be receiving the telemetry of their latest failure. They too would adapt. The war wasn't over. Lutz's voice came through general comms, but softer now. For the record cast, that was some slick override work. Ben muttered something indecipherable. Perhaps an apology, perhaps a new curse. Cas9 spoke up. "We'll need to rewrite the protocols before the next wave. Armor-piercing airframes require unified shocks. That means redesigning the predictive model." Lyra straightened. "I'll draft a patch tonight." Ben sighed. "Council decision first. You might not hold a chair tomorrow." She met his gaze across the deck. "Then I'll write it from the public side of the barrier." "It still needs writing." He rubbed a hand across his bald scalp, as if smoothing bristling thoughts. "Kest, you terrify me. You have your father's appetite for brinkmanship." "And you have his talent for surviving it," Lut quipped. Even Ben chuckled at that. The moment loosed some tension. A maintenance drone buzzed overhead, firing resin into microfractures in the tower's skin. More drones would be canvassing the city now, patching roofs, fitting polymer sheets over broken windows. Vesper Reef would look like a quilt tomorrow, buildings stitched with temporary scabs of translucent fabric. The children would poke at them and giggle, and mothers would scold, and fathers would mutter about proper supply. Life went on. Lyra walked to the rail again. Her hair whipped sideways in the still settling air. Somewhere across that red landscape, the refinery barons forged the next weapon. She imagined them watching tonight's failure, replay, wondering how the terraformers had changed the rules again. The secret had always been the air itself. On most settled planets, atmospheric engineering was a slow, patient craft, coaxing greenhouse mixes, adjusting cloud albedo. But on Crimson Dusk, the settlers had discovered a quirk of local physics early on. A high ratio of noble gases gave shockwaves exceptional coherence. That meant the air could be sculpted, sharpened, even made to crack like God's own whip. The terraformers here were not gardeners. They were smiths, hammering invisible blades in the sky. Lyra touched the console's glass once more, fingers tracing the residual pressure map. With a thought, she archived tonight's data set to her private storage. The file name auto-generated. Supersonic_shield_iteration_49. 49 attempts to reach a perfect defense, and still counting. She wondered how many the barons had logged on their side. Her implant pinged again, this time an official summons. Council hearing, sunrise, charges pending. Download docket? She accepted, might as well read the accusations before sleep. Cas9 observed her expression. You don't regret it, do you? No, Lara said. The ease of the answer surprised her. I regret the broken glass. I regret scaring people. But I don't regret the call. Then hold to it. The council respects conviction. Or fears it, Lara muttered. But Cass smiled. Fear and respect often wear the same cloak. Below, the city lights flickered as power was rerouted, distorting into a glowing latticework shaped like a new constellation. Lara imagined what the scene looked like from orbit. 4 towers pulsing violet, a grid of orange lamps, and the dark smear where the missiles had vaporized. A sign to any would-be attacker that Vesper Reef had teeth. Wind teased the broken edges of a nearby sensor vane, making it chime. Lara listened. Terraformers learned to read the planet's moods in sound whisper of barometric tide, low croon of magnetite ridges. Tonight, the air carried a new timbre. Raw, but resonant, like a drumhead stretched tighter than before. That, she thought, is the voice of a boundary pushed. Tomorrow another boundary would loom. The barons would test their next shell. The council would test their next terraformer. And she would stand again between impulse and disaster. The work was never done, but for one pivotal instant she had bent the sky and saved her city. The memory of that act hummed in her, brighter than fear, steadier than doubt. Lyra kissed, breathed in the iron-scented dusk, and began the long climb down the tower, into the broken but living heart of Vesper Reef, ready to face whatever dawn upon crimson dusk might bring.